I want to start differently. I'm not going to open with a question or a proactivation or a story that pulls you in by the collar. I'm going to just start by acknowledging where we are. If you've been with me for the last 4 episodes, you have done real work. Not passive listening work, the kind of work that happens inside a person when something true gets said out loud and they can't unhear it. You've sat with the emptiness after achievement. You've looked at the differences between passion and purpose. You've started rethinking what your work is actually for, and you've named the fears that have been sitting with you in the life you know you're supposed to be building. That is not nothing. That is actually a lot. And today, in this episode, we're going to bring it all together. This is the integration episode, the one where we stop talking about purpose as a concept and start talking about it as a way of living. Not as a destination you arrive at, a daily practice you choose, a lens through which you make decisions, build your work, design your days, and measure your life. This is what it actually looks like to live purpose over paycheck. Let's go. Welcome to the Onto Over Purpose Paycheck. My name is Troy, Master Coach, Manifestation Mentor, and someone who has spent the better part of the last decade figuring out what it actually means to live this. Not just teach it, not just talk about it on a podcast, but live it on a Tuesday when things are hard and the easier choice is right there. One episode we talked about with 5 weeks of going deeper together, and I want to honor that before we move on into the content because I think it matters. In one episode, we talked about the moment success stops being enough, the emotional plateau, the hollow feeling after the achievement, the signal that something deeper is trying to get your attention. In another episode, we separated passion from purpose, energy from responsibility, the spark from the thing that it burns. The other episode, we got practical, designing work around values, escaping achievement addictions, the difference between impact and income, and the intersection of skill, service, and identity. In our last episode, we went to the place nobody wants to go, the fear of responsibility, of visibility, of disappointing the people you love, and we reframed it, all of it. Fear as navigation, not as obstruction. Fear as the arrow pointing at the next right thing on your compass. And now, in this episode, we land. We integrate. We answer the question that has been underneath every episode in this week. Okay? I understand all of this. Now, how do I actually live it? That's today. Let's build this. I want to start by dismantling a myth because I think it's the myth that keeps the most people stuck even after they've done all the inner work. The myth is this: that living purposefully is a state you arrive at, that there is a moment, a threshold, a crossing, after which you are officially living your purpose. You've done the work, you've made the leap, you've built the thing, and now you're on the other side. Purpose achieved, meaning unlocked, fulfillment ongoing. Sorry, that is not how it works. Living purposefully is not a destination. It is a practice. It is a daily, sometimes hourly decision to orient yourself toward what matters and to keep returning to that orientation when life pulls you off course, which it will every day in 100 small ways. The meeting that runs long takes the energy you were saving for the work that actually matters. The comparison spiral that starts when you see someone else's highlighted reel and suddenly your own progress feels small. The day when nothing feels meaningful and you're just going through the motions and you wonder if you've lost the thread. Those days are not evidence that you are failing at living purposefully. Those days are just days. And living purposefully means that on those days, especially on those days, you have a compass you can return to, a set of anchors that remind you what you're oriented toward and why. So the question is not, have I arrived at my purpose? The question is, what are my anchors? What are the practices, the commitments, the daily choices that keep me oriented toward what matters even when the feeling isn't there? Because here's the truth about purposeful living that nobody tells you in the inspirational content. It is mostly unglamorous. It is early mornings and hard conversations and days where the work is slow and the results are invisible, and you keep showing up anyway because you know what you're building toward. It is choosing aligned over impressive again and again in moments that nobody else will ever see. That is the practice, and the practice is the point. All right, let's talk about design. Because I think a lot of people understand purpose intellectually, but have never actually sat down and asked, what does a life aligned with my purpose look like structurally? Not philosophical, structurally. How does it run? How does the calendar look like? Where does this energy go? What gets a yes and what gets a no? Designing a life around purpose requires three things. Clarity, structure, and protection. And most people have fragments of one of these, but not all three working together. Let's talk about clarity. Clarity is knowing what you're designing toward. It's your purpose statement, not a corporate mission statement, not 5 polished words you put on your Instagram bio, the real one. The one you'd write in a journal at midnight when nobody is watching. Who are you here to serve? What changes because of your work? Who are you becoming in the process? That clarity is the blueprint. Without it, you're building without plans. You might build something impressive that still doesn't feel like yours. Next is structure. Structure is how that clarity shows up in your actual daily life. This is where most people drop the ball. Not because they don't care, but because they never translated their values and purpose into concrete decisions about time, energy, and attention. You say creativity is a value, but when does it get scheduled? You say service is your purpose, but how many hours a week are you genuinely devoted to the work that serves other people versus the admin and the performance and the busy work that fills up the hours around it? Here is an exercise I give clients. Take your last full week and color code your calendar. Not the ideal week, the actual week. One color for work that directly aligns with your purpose, one color for necessary but not purpose-aligned tasks, one color for what I call drift, the time spent on things that don't belong in either category but somehow ate up the hours. Most people are shocked by how little of their week is actually in that first color. And that shock is useful. That's the data. Design starts with seeing the truth of where things actually are. And then there's protection. Because clarity without structure is just intention. Structure without protection is just a plan that life will immediately dismantle. Protection means having the practices and the boundaries that guard the work that matters from the constant pressure of every urgent. It means the morning routine that holds a space for you before the world gets access to your attention. It means the no you give to the commitment that would take exactly the time you need for the things that aligned. It means treating your purpose-aligned work as non-negotiable, not when it's convenient, not when everything else is handled, but as the anchor around which the rest of the schedule is built. Clarity, structure, protection. These are not luxuries for people who have their lives together. They are the tools that make having your life together possible in the first place. So in one episode, I said the income is the resource that makes meaningful work sustainable, and the impact is the reason the work exists at all. Today, I want to go further, because I think the most powerful shift that happens when someone truly commits to living purpose over paycheck is that the relationship between income and meaning stops being a tension and starts being a partnership. Let me explain what I mean. When you're in achievement addiction mode, when your work is built around validation and external metrics, income and meaning compete for the same energy. Every decision is a tug of war, the thing that plays well versus the thing that matters. The client you should take versus the client you want to take. The opportunity that looks impressive versus the opportunity that feels aligned. That tug of war is exhausting. And it never fully resolves because you're working from two different compasses pointing in two different directions. But when you get deeply clear on your purpose, when you know who you serve, what impact you're creating, and what role your work plays in the world, something interesting happens to the income question. It stops being the primary question, and the moment it stops being the primary question, you start making decisions that are more aligned. And aligned decisions over time create more sustainable income than scattered, approved chasing decisions ever could. Here's why. When your work is genuinely purpose aligned, you show up differently. You're not performing, you're serving. And people feel the difference. The client you're fully present for, the content you create from a place of real conviction, the offer you build because you understand exactly what your people need. Those things convert better, retain longer, and generate referrals in ways that manufacturer credibility never quite manage. Purpose-aligned work is more sustainable across the time. The person grinding through work they hate burns out. The person doing the work that is genuinely theirs, work that feeds them, even if it costs them, keeps going. They recover faster, they find the energy for the hard days, they stay in the game long enough for compounding to work in their favor. I'm not promising you that living your purpose automatically makes you rich. That would be irresponsible and untrue. This is real strategy involving building income around meaningful work, positioning, packaging, pricing, marketing, and all the unglamorous business infrastructures that purpose alone doesn't build for you. But what I am telling you is this. The integration is possible. Income and meaning can work together. And the path to that integration is not to figure out the income first and hope meaning follows. It's to get ruthlessly clear on the meaning first, the purpose, the people, the impact. Then to build the income model that sits on top of that clarity. That sequence changes everything. I want to talk about leadership. Not the leadership of a team or an organization, though that's part of it for some of you. The leadership of your own life. Most people are passengers in their own life, not because they're lazy or disengaged, because they never learn what it looks like to actually lead themselves. They respond, they react, they let the loudest thing in the room determine where their attention goes. They make decisions by default, by what's expected, what's familiar, what's avoiding conflicts, rather than by design. Leading your life intentionally means something different. It means you are the one setting the direction. Not your inbox, not your family's expectations, not the industry standard or the social media algorithm or the 5-year plan you made when you were a different person with different information. You, with clarity, with intention, with the willingness to make choices that reflect who you actually are and where you're actually going, even when those choices are uncomfortable, even when they require explanation, even when they go against the grain of what the people around you expect. Intentional living has 3 practices I want to name specifically. The first is the practice of regular realignment. This means building into your life, weekly, monthly, quarterly, a deliberate moment where you stop and ask, am I still oriented toward what matters? Has the drift happened? Have I been responding to life's demand at the expense of living my design? Realignment is not a crisis intervention. It's maintenance. The way you don't let a small leak become a flood because you check the pipes on schedule. The second is the practice of intentional no. Every yes you give is a no to something else, and most people never flip that equation around. Every time you say yes to the obligation that doesn't align, you are saying no to something that does. The intentional no is the practice of getting honest about the trade-off before you make it, and choosing the yes that reflects your purpose rather than the yes that manages someone else's expectations. The third is the practice of leading from values in the small moments, because intentionally living is not just the big decision. The career pivot, the relationship boundary, the public commitment, it's the small ones. The way you spend the first 30 minutes of your morning, the content you consume versus create, the conversation you have, the courage to start versus the one that you let slide because it felt easier. The daily, ordinary, invisible choice that nobody will ever applaud, but that add up over time in the shape of your life. Those small moments are where intentional living actually lives. In the aggregated of the ordinary. So, you are the architect of your life, not the contractor executing someone else's plans, not the inspector showing up after the fact to assess what got built. The architect, the one who holds the vision, makes the design decisions, and ensures that what gets built actually reflects what was intended. So start leading your life like you believe that. I do want to spend some real time on this one, because I think the tension between long-term fulfillment and short-term achievement is the central tension of most people's working lives. And most people are losing that tension without even knowing they're in it. Short-term achievement is seductive. It has an immediate feedback loop. You work hard, you hit the goal, you feel good, the numbers go up, people notice, the dopamine's fire. The cycle is fast, it is real, it is genuinely satisfying in the short term. But short-term achievement is also a game with the inherent problem. The goalposts never stop moving. Hit the income target and immediately the next income target materializes. Reach the follower count and the new follower count takes its place. Get the promotion and the next promotion becomes the new objective. The game never ends. And if short-term achievement is the primary game you're playing, you will run it for the rest of your life and always feel like you're slightly behind where you should be. That is not a fulfillment strategy. That is a treadmill. Long-term fulfillment operates on completely different logic. It asks different questions. Not what did I achieve this month, but am I becoming who I want to be? Not what does my output look like, but what is my life actually building toward? Not am I winning by the metrics everyone around me is using, but am I winning by the metrics that actually reflect what I value? The person playing the long-term fulfillment game is it's not unambitious. Let me be clear about that. They may be building something just as large or larger than the person on the achievement treadmill. But the way they measure progress is different. They're not just counting the wins, they're assessing the direction. They're asking, is this aligned? Is this sustainable? Is this making me more of who I'm supposed to be or less? And here's the thing that makes long-term fulfillment both harder and more rewarding than short-term achievement. It requires you to be willing to look unimpressive in the short term in order to build something meaningful in the long term. The purpose-driven business that doesn't scale as fast because you refuse to compromise the quality of your service. The career that doesn't look as linear because you took the sideways move that put you closer to the real work. The year that was quieter externally because you spent it doing the deeper interior work that everything else is built on. Those things don't trend. They don't make good content in the moment, but they compound. And the person who plays the long game, who makes consistent, aligned, values-driven decisions over years, builds something that the achievement addiction cannot. A life that they actually want to be living. Not a life that looks like what they want to be living. A life they genuinely, quietly, sustainably want. That's the game I'm asking you to play. The longer one. The slower one. The one that requires more patience and more faith and more willingness to trust a direction that it isn't always immediately validated. It's worth it. I promise you, it is worth it. I want to touch base and talk about success one more time, from a different place than where we started. In the episode I talked about success, I described the feeling of having all the external markers of success and still feeling hollow, the plateau, the quiet emptiness after the achievement. That was the problem we started with. Several episodes later, I want to offer you a different definition of success. Not the definition the world gave you, the one you get to write yourself. Here's mine. Success is waking up most mornings, not every morning, most, and feeling like your life is moving in the direction of something that matters. That the work you're doing is genuinely yours. That the person you're becoming is someone you recognize and respect. That the impact you're having, however quietly, is real. That is the decision you make on the ordinary Tuesday. You are consistent with the values you hold and the purpose you're building toward. That's it. That's the definition I work from. Not a number, not a title, not a following, a net worth, an award, or a landmark moment that you can point and say, there, that's where I made it. The integration, the alignment, the felt sense of being on the right path, building the right thing, becoming the right person for you, not for the audience, not for the resume, not for the version of success that was handed to you before you were old enough to question it. Now, I want to be honest with you. Even with a redefined definition of success, there will still be hard days. There will still be days when the alignment is hard to fill, when the purpose feels distant, when the long game feels impossibly long, and the short-term whims of the people around you look very appealing. On those days, what I want you to remember is this: you are not behind. You're not failing. You are in the middle of something that takes time. And the most important thing you can do on those days is return. Return to your compass. Return to your anchors. Return to the clarity you built and the values you choose and the direction you're committed to. Return and keep going. Because living purpose over paycheck is not a one-time decision. It's 1,000 small decisions made over and over in the direction of what matters. It's a practice. It's a commitment. It's a way of moving through the world that gets more natural over time, but never requires zero effort. And it is, without question, without hesitation, from someone who has lived both sides of this, the more fulfilling way to live. I want to close a little differently this time. I want to speak to you directly to you, the person who's been listening, who came back episode after episode, who sat with the uncomfortable questions and didn't tab away, who started writing things down or started thinking about the things differently, or had a conversation with yourself in the car on the drive home that you weren't expecting to have. I see you. I know that what you've been talking about for the last several weeks is not easy. It's not the content that makes you feel good for an hour and then floats away. It's the content that follows you into the quiet moments and asks something of you. And I want you to know that I don't take that lightly. I don't take your time lightly, or your trust, or the fact that you keep coming back. You came to this show because something in you already knew. You already knew that the version of success you were building didn't quite fit. You already knew that there was something deeper calling you. You already knew that purpose was the real conversation. And you just needed a space where that conversation was taken seriously. I hope that these week's episodes have been that space. And here is what I want to leave with you. Not as a coach, not as a podcast host, but as someone who has made this journey and is still on it. You are not late. You are not far behind. You are not complicated or stuck or invested in the wrong things to change direction. You are exactly where you are supposed to be for the conversation you just had with yourself. The purpose is real. The fear is navigatable. The work is worth building. The income and the meaning can coexist. The life you actually want to live is not a fantasy. It is a design problem. And you now have more tools to solve it than you did weeks ago. So go. Build the thing. Have the conversation. Send that email. Make the offer. Start the practice. Say the true things out loud. Take the step that scares you because you know what that fear means. Go live it. Not perfectly, not without fear, not with every answer already in place, just intentionally, just faithfully, just in the direction of what matters. That is purpose over paycheck. That is the show. And I am honored to be on this road with you. I'm Coach Troy. This is Purpose Over Paycheck. And our week is complete. Our week is complete. And I just want to say something. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting that play button. Thank you for jumping on this journey this week with me. And I cannot wait to bring you more episodes, more content, and more strategies and tools as we continue to discuss purpose over paycheck, right? Onto purpose over paycheck, because that's what it's all about, friends. Please make sure you're following. Please make sure you share out this episode with someone who needs to hear it, because you're sharing it out with someone. You are helping them to start identifying and building that path for them, because none of this should be gatekept. Share this out. Also, please leave a rating, leave a comment, do what you need to do. If you want to talk furthermore, you've got my link. It's in the show notes. Connect with me and let's have a chat. Let's make it happen. Again, thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next episode.